our thoughts create our own reality. This physical reality of us is actually a dream. When we die, we end this dream of life. You live each day by loving what you do, then you don't miss anything. So the moment you miss, you are getting into that lack consciousness. Good morning, friends. I welcome you all to this session. Myself, Madhavi from Chennai. I'm here to present you a book by name You'll See It When You Believe It by Dr. Wayne Dyer. And in this book, the author has got a wonderful inner transformation through one of his incidents in his own personal life. And from that moment on, how did his life transform and how did he see his life or his work or his relationships? And what was the perspective that turned everything from upside down? Is what is described in this book. And the name suggests you will see it when you believe it. Kind of manifestation or visualization, something is what the name suggests, but this is really has got deep spiritual concepts. Let us get into the book. So, what is your belief that is shaping what you see right now? Do we have any idea of what are all our belief systems that because of which we are seeing what we are seeing now? And are we ready for an inner shift? And like, what do we do to see? How do we change this? Like, I will believe it when I see it. To I will see it when I believe it. There's a difference. So I will believe it when I see it means you see whatever which is visible and you only believe those things which are visible to you. But bring your thoughts into visibility, you need something. There are so many things that is working from the behind. So it is always I will see it when I believe it means you have the power within you to make see what you believe. So let's get into it. The first chapter that he talks is about transformation. So this is a beautiful definition that he has given in this book regarding the transformation. So what he has took is form transformation. Okay, form is the physical structure. Trans means you're beyond. It is beyond, and Asian means anything that is in action. So when your actions are coming from a place which is beyond your form, then it means a transformed action. So what he says is there are two things. Like we all know that we have a form which is visible. That is only 1%. So there is a formless thing. There is an invisible formless essence which is 99% of our being, and that is the subtle energy that is operating this 1% form. But we always believe that we are this form and we have nothing to do with the invisible aspect. But when you shift your belief from this visible form to an invisible essence, then there is a greater shift that you can see in your form life, that is the physical life. So he says that the physical body is bound by the rules of the form, and it is very limited in perspective. The physical body that we see has is its own limitations, but all these creations that is physically visible in this world is from our thoughts, and thoughts has no limitations. So to create life without limitations, it is how we can do is we'll have to believe and act from I am a soul with this body, and not from I have this body with a soul. So your perception should shift from your body to your soul. So this is what is a transformed action. And now when you are acting out of your 99% invisible essence of formlessness, then what then how do you act? It is like, you are in natural peace and joy, and there is no fear for you. You don't judge people. There's no worry, and you accept everything as it is, and you accept different viewpoints, and you don't have to prove yourself to anybody. You don't feel like proving yourself to anybody, and you keep smiling always, and you slow down, and there is no hurry, and there is no race, no hurry, and you just slow down, and you see everything from a grander version. So, like, how do you measure that you are working out of that invisible essence? Is that, there is always actions are in harmony, and it is always positive. Then you are working from that invisible essence or formless essence. And if there is if your actions are creating some kind of disorder, or some chaos is there, then it is not from your inner invisible formless essence. So it is always essential that we act from that invisible essence of ours, which he says is formless essence. And now, why do we resist this transformation? That is, why do we resist acting from that invisible essence of ours? Or we can say it as the powerful essence of ours is the invisible form, which is present within, and the 1%, just 1% of the form is which is visible. So we operate both from both form and formlessness simultaneously. So so simultaneously we are in the limitations, and simultaneously we are without limitations. We can act without limitations. So why do we resist this transformation? It is because we have the habit of seeing and believing only things that we see with our visible eyes. And for us, whatever we see is what giving us safety. And we are so comfortable with our own things that we see, and physically contact and see. So, and also we are getting too much attached to this physical form body. So all these things resist us from acting from that invisible essence of ours. So now we get into the invisible essence. What is this invisible essence that the author calls it as thoughts, awareness, consciousness? All those things that invisible essence is predominantly our thoughts, which creates our reality. So he says that whatever that you see in this physical world is generated or created out of your own thoughts. And there is nothing to fear about, because there is nothing actually good or bad. It is all how you see them as good and bad from your mind space. So there is actually, in reality, there is nothing good or bad. And when you internalize this, that the thoughts creates your reality, and you can really create everything that you want in your thought form, and then that transforms into your form, which is the physical world. The author started getting this, like, once he is a transformed person, whatever he sees in his thoughts, that followed in the physical form as they progressed. So it was flowing, whatever he thought was flowing through him in his own life. And he didn't have to do much to he didn't take much efforts to make everything happen. So our thoughts create our own reality. Now there are four principles for these thoughts to perform. So you want these thoughts to come into your physical reality, right? For that, you have to have these four principles to be always kept in place. So, like how your actions come from your images. So, whatever we act and whatever we see in the physical world are basically the images that we have in our mind. So, how long can you have those images? So the longer you hold the images, the more their probability for becoming into a matter. So whatever we see as outer images are just Outer forms are just inner images that define the life. So how does this happen? It is like all your behaviors in the external form are defining your feelings, and all those feelings come out of your thoughts. So if you have to change your behavior, then you have to change your thoughts and your thought patterns. So there is nothing that you can directly do to change your behavior. So you have to work from your thoughts and your thought pattern to change, to bring a change in your physical behaviors. And then next, so once you hold this image, right, you hold this image for a long time, and you do not only hold that image in your mind space, you also feel it as though it is already there with you. It is in reality, you already have it. You have to feel as though you have it already. So how do we see this from the scientific point? Like whatever we see in the physical form or in the atomic form, it is all energy. So, the seemingly solid forms in the physical world are just molecules of energy vibrating at a different frequency. So, for your thoughts to get manifested as a matter, all you have to do is your thoughts has to match the frequency of the matter, and then you see it in the physical world. So, again, I say this is not a manifestation class, and this is not how he has written his book, but he is just giving the principles of how your thoughts is becoming a matter. So these two principles have been covered, and the third principle is willingness to do. So we are right. We have an internal image, and we are also feeling it as though it is real already. But in the physical essence, what is that you can do to get that into reality? Like if you want a job, if you want a very good job, and that job is in some different place, and are you willing to take a step to relocate yourself? So this is one kind of, are you really willing and really willing to do anything that comes in your way to make that thought into a matter? So are you willing to do that? Only then the entire universe is ready to bring that thought into a form. So, and for example, it's a job, right? And another example that can be given is like, if you want a doctorate, and you need to do a lot of study, right? If you are willing to do that study, that research, and then you get a doctorate, if you are not willing to do that, then how do you expect a doctorate to happen? So it is not possible. So your willingness to do, and your willingness to achieve that matters. And in all these attempts, there are no failures. This is the fourth and the final principle that the author says. There is absolutely no failures. So in all your tries that you have given your best try, still you don't see a form, right? But still it is an outcome. It is a different result. Now, I will just describe this with an example. See, like if you are playing a football match and you want to strike a goal, you're trying to strike a goal, and you in that trying you have done 100 attempts. Let's say it is not 100 failures, but it is 100 different results. That's how you see that. So it is, I hope I'm clear. This is how it is. So you have produced 100 different outputs other than a goal. So there is no failure at all. So all these four principles we have to keep in mind whenever you want your thought to become a form. Now he says that this is a beautiful analogy that he gives in this book about dreams. So what happens in a dream, or we can say what is the nature of a dream? In a dream, we all do dream while we are sleeping, and in a dream, there is no time and there is no cause and effect, and you don't have a beginning or an end, and whatever in the dream you face as an obstacle, you always see it as an opportunity, and you learn, or you quickly come out of it, and you what your actions are like, you are out of that obstacle and you create everything that you want. And the only thing in a dream that disturbs is, when say, if you imagine, if you're holding a knife or somebody is trying to kill you in a dream, then what happens is you feel that the blood rush into your heart, and you will feel that your heart is pumping, or you scream, and you scream also in physical reality, right? So whatever the reactions that you give in a dream, that is affected in the physical body. So now this is just a dream, right? How do we dream? How do we end the dreaming state? Is just when you wake up, the dream is ended. And how do we end the dream of life and its illusions? So now the author here says, what he says is, this physical reality of us is actually a dream. So how do we end this dream? When we die, we end this dream of life. So he says, when your life ends with death, you see that you are more than this physical body, and whatever is there in this physical world are just illusions, and you don't own anything, and you are just simple, that invisible essence is what you are, and you just held on to that body for few years, and it is all a bigger dream. So this is what is beautifully explained in this book. And while explaining, he says this beautiful quote: the anger we experience in the physical body while in dream. He says this entire life on earth is a dream that we are dreaming. So the anger that which we are experiencing in the physical body while in dream or in awake is real, because even in our dreams the reactions are real, right? You scream, even if you want to scream in a dream, you also scream in the reality, just like that. Your heart beats faster if somebody strikes you, right? So just like that, the anger while we are in this body, in this dreaming body, it is real. But the things that we are angry about, or the persons against whom we are angry about, they are just illusions. They have nothing to do here. So now he says that is very important. So you understand that this entire physical reality is the biggest illusion, and you are dreaming. You have to just come out of the dream. So he says you don't actually have to die to come out of the dream. You just have to realize that it is a dream, and you come out of the dream. So next concept he introduces is oneness. Oneness, he's giving a scientific and experiential understanding of this oneness. He says a story of a monkey in Japan. There is a group of monkeys, and one monkey in that group starts cleaning sweet potatoes in a fashion, and quickly the other monkeys in the group also picks up the same kind of washing the sweet potatoes. And this is one part of the world, and when this group of monkeys starts doing the same thing, this similar habit is picked up by another group of monkeys in different part of the world. So he says this as a collective consciousness. So if we want a quantum shift in the physical reality, right, like you need universal peace, then you have to have a bigger lot of people with aligning with the same frequency of peace. So this is one part of the oneness definition that he has given. And the next is, you imagine yourself. There are multiple cells in our body, physical body, right? And each individual cell carries the whole essence of you in one single cell. In your physical body, you can clone millions of you in by just stimulating each individual cell. That's the concept of oneness that he's trying to say. He's asking us to imagine this entire human race as a huge one physical human body. Then then for that in huge human body, each individual cell will be the each individual human beings. So we are part of that big human body. So that's the concept of oneness that he is trying to say. And when you label yourself, and when you judge yourself, when you define yourself, when you see others as different and you are different, there is a kind of separation that you bring about, and then you are disconnected from that oneness consciousness. So this labeling, judging, defining, seeing yourself separate from others, these are the limiting factors, and this brings separation, and you don't feel that oneness. Next concept that he introduces is abundance, and abundance is like, imagine we all can count number of seeds in an apple, but can you count the number of apples in that each seed can carry? And in total, how many apples can you get from an apple? It is countless, right? Infinite. So that is the concept of abundance. You have everything in abundance. It is already there. Abundance is there already. Just that you have to tune into it. How do you tune into abundance? Is you don't focus on scarcity, rather you focus on abundance. Uh, you are already abundant, and you don't have to get into abundance. You are already abundant, just that you have to realize you have an abundance. So he says, like, you live each day by loving what you do, then you don't miss anything. So the moment you miss, you are getting into that lack consciousness. So the moment you love doing what you're doing each day, then you spend your energy very happily, and you are naturally thankful to whatever you have in life, and to naturally thankful to all around you for enjoying your life. So you are naturally into abundance. So he says, do not focus on the negatives, rather focus on the positives of your life. So just in case, if you want to lose weight, you don't focus on losing weight, you focus on becoming healthy. So that is the essence of abundance. If you want to quit smoking, like, you don't have to try hard to quit smoking, rather you have to focus on becoming a tobacco free person. It's a shift in how you think and how you see yourself. And you can also see abundance from a different angle. So he says, you have not so we are all dreaming, right? We are all dreaming this reality. So we have nothing to own in this dream. You are here only to enjoy it. So when you wake up from this dream of earth, you will find that everything is an illusion. So you have nothing to hold for yourself. You can happily enjoy whatever is available in this whole earth physical world, but you cannot own anything. Example, you cannot own your house, you cannot own your car, or your belongings. They are now giving happiness to you, and will eventually pass on to somebody else when you are no more there. So this is something, a different perspective that the author writes in this book. Next is detachment. So detachment, he says, detachment is one thing that you have to definitely practice to move out of sufferings. So why he wants us to think of a detachment? Because we are into attachment. We are attached to things, people, our past, our physical body, our own ideas. We are so much attached to our own ideas that we don't listen to others, and we are attached to our money. We are attached to winning. Some people are so much attached to winning that they cannot accept losing in a game or something. He says you proving yourself as right all the time is also a kind of an attachment. So all these are attachment. By attachment, what do? We resist change, and we don't trust people. So he says you have to practice detachment. That frees you from this physical reality. That frees you from this physical reality. So why do we get attached? Because we define our life purpose in terms of all that external things that we see and the persons that we are in touch with. So we are more focused towards outwardly than towards inside. So for you to experience this detachment, you have to really loosen your grip, and you need not hold on to anything or person. They are just obstacles in your way of detachment. So you have to release your hold and let go of people and things, and then you are easily in a detached mode. So he says, when you practice this detachment, what happens is, you know, the entire universe is full of energy only. So whatever inside us is also energy, whatever outside us is also energy. And energy has a natural flow. When you are attached, you are holding on to something, you are obstructing the path of natural flow of energy. When you are relaxed and you know that when you trust this energy and it flows through you naturally, there is no interference in the process, you get whatever you want. So when you are in detachment, the abundance happens naturally. He gives an example of, like, how detachment, you can say, you know that your physical body has so many internal functioning, like digestive system, circulatory system, excretory system. All these systems, they run on their own, in their own natural flow. Are we getting attached to anything? Are we trying to do something on the process? No, right? They are happening in its natural flow. Only then it is a perfect system. So for the universal laws to operate in your life in a free flow manner, then we got to get this detachment principle working in our life. So we need to loosen our grip and see the free flow of energy in our happening in our life. So Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says detachment is the only way out of suffering. And then how do we practice this detachment? This is the toughest part, right? We are used to getting attached to so many things in this worldly affairs. So how do we detach ourselves from the outcomes? We are holding on to an outcome because we feel that the external opinions towards the outcomes, they are important rather than what we feel from inside. So we need to detach from the external opinions so that we allow the free flow of energy. And how do you experience detachment in relationship? It is by not judging the other persons with your own lens. So how do we not judge others? It's like you honor their needs and their right to be on their own path, because it is their own inner guidance and you have nothing to do in their life. And while doing that, while giving the space for others, you also respect your own needs and your own right to be on your own path without judging any of your feelings as right or wrong. So in this way, you detach from others and you detach from your own feeling or your own judgment about yourself. So now there's a question: are you suffering in your life? Be it whatever be the situation, are you suffering in your life? Then it means that you're attached to how things should go in your life at this point of time. So it is a subtle kind of attachment that you hold on to whatever is happening in your life. So by detachment, he says, you trust the energies of the universe and you surrender to the supreme intelligence to allow that natural flow of intelligence through you. What he says by the natural flow of intelligence is the intuition that is working through you. So we need to drop all our judgments and be open to new ways of thinking and processing. So then he gives this concept of synchronicity, the invisible connections. So synchronicity, he says, as connectedness. So it's like all it's in this physical body. You see, all the cells are connected, and that gives you this form, right? So that connectedness is what he says as synchronicity. So for what are the kinds of connections that he describes as visible connections? Visible means you example, you have a kid who is pulling a car using a string. That string is a visible connection. Hidden connection is when you switch on a light, bulb blooms, right? So there is a hidden connection between the switch and the light, and the invisible connection, human form to form. So it is like this: you are in a different room and another person is in a different room, and when the other person calls, you hear the sound and you then react to that person. So there is an invisible connection that is happening through sound. So our own connections, we have now understood that our thoughts become matter. So there is a connection between thoughts and the form. So incomprehensible connection, which means one human thought to another human form. This is happening when you can notice in between an infant and a mother. So the mother always knows that the infant is crying, even if she is in a different area, and the mother always can sense the infant hunger, so she's always ready when the kid is hungry. So this is a beautiful connection that is happening between a mother and the kid. And our own connections is thought to a thought. So if you want to write something, then you first have a thought to write, and then you have another thought to see what you have to write. And when you decide on the topic, then you get the content flowing as thoughts and thoughts and thoughts. So there is always an interconnectedness between each and every thought. Then you have a beautiful writing of your own. So this is our own connections. So in synchronicity, when he says one human thought to another human thought, in a formless dimension. So we all know that thoughts form the invisible formless dimensions, right? It is there in the invisible formless dimension. You don't find a thought in this physical reality. You find this thought in the invisible realm. So in everywhere it is only energy. So you are easily connected to the energies, and that's why there is a connection between one human thought and the another human thought. You can also find this, if you go into a supermarket, you will feel like buying 2 3 items and you end up buying a big list. How does this happen? It is because of the interconnectedness between your thought and the other person's thought in the supermarket that you end up buying a big list than what you want to buy actually. So then he says this concept of synchronized events. So through this synchronized events, the author is trying to say that there is a universal intelligence that is working through us, which is intuition. So when you work through your intuitions, you allow that natural flow of energies that is happening through you, and you will see that whatever you want will happen to you in the right time at the right moment. So all you have to do is you just allow the energies to flow through you. That itself is a synchronized event. So when you there is a synchronicity between the intuition and the natural flow in the form state. This is one of the important concepts that he has discussed in this book. Forgiveness is freedom. So, so all these principles, yes, you have to do, you have to deliberately do. But this one principle is the starting or the starting point with which you can always start, and rest everything will flow in its natural way. So, are we blaming someone in our life? Is there a feeling of revenge to be taken in our life? Are we judging someone in our life? Then we need to stop everything right now, because the moment we are not blaming someone, or we don't have any revengeful thoughts, or we don't judge anyone, then there is no need to ask forgiveness or give forgiveness. So what is a blame? It is basically you don't take responsibility for whatever is happening in your life. You tend to point others for whatever that is happening to you. So, which is blame game. So, all that we have in our physical reality is basically what you have created, and there is no point in blaming the other person. While doing so, what is happening is you give the control keys to that other person who is to whom you are blaming. So this blame happens in the mind, and for you to take the control back, you have to take the responsibility for your life back. So to work on, like, freeing yourself from this Taking charge and freeing yourself from others' clutch is how you assume your own responsibility and know that whatever is happening in your life is purely your own choices and your own. So, inability to forgive is the cause of suffering, and there is no blame. You take full responsibility for whatever is happening in your life, and by doing that, you take the control keys in your own hands. And so every people that you're trying to blame, they are in their own path of evolution and they act in to their own knowledge that they have. So they are just here to teach you lessons and they are the teachers in your life. So while forgiving others, it is equally important that you forgive yourself and be gentle towards yourself, because guilt is a poison to the soul and it is okay to make mistakes. So by mistakes we learn. It is okay to make mistakes and you don't have to be too rude towards yourself. So it is equally important that you forgive yourself. Now, now, why is this forgiveness that essential? I have told you in the beginning itself, the author has got an intuition to write this book when something turned to him in his life. So he was deserted by his father in his own childhood. They had so many hardships in their life, and he wanted to always question his father for deserting them. And he that turned out towards anger, and that anger turned to hatred. And with this energy that he was holding on to, there was nothing going in correlation in his life. There was total his work, his life, his relationship, everything was shattered. He will he will find that his father is no more and he wanted to visit the graveyard and everything will fall in place and he will directly land in the place where his father was cremated. And the moment he was in front of his father's graveyard, he will burst into tears asking forgiveness for whatever he was holding on in his heart. So that moment he felt like he has dropped a bigger baggage and he was a transformed person the moment he asked forgiveness. So it is like the essence of this book and the takeaways are this, forgiveness is your first self liberation. So the moment you forgive, then you allow the universal energies to flow to you, then you are perfectly synchronized. And once you trust the universal energies, then you let go of all your attachments and you know that whatever you want will happen and will come to you at the right time and the right place. And so, since there's no attachment, you're normally in the abundant state. You don't feel lack in your whole life. Once you feel that there is nothing to lack and you are abundant, you are naturally in the oneness state. And for all this to happen, your thought pattern is the one that is the key that has to change. And when your thoughts change and align yourself, then you are operating from your 99% of that invisible, formless essence of yours. So when your belief changes, your perception shifts, and when your perception shifts, your life responds to you in the way that you want. Thank you so much for patient listening, and thank you so much. And
Hi, Madhavi.
thank
It
you,
was
thank
a
you.
very beautiful presentation. The concept of the apple seed to relate to how abundance work, that was very beautiful. And I want to clarify. He said when you have a triggered emotions in your dream, meaning you carry that in yourself, right?
It is not carrying in yourself.
Uh-huh.
It is
Uh-huh.
in a dream. If someone comes and strikes you with a knife, then what you do in a dream, you try to scream, and that scream, also you unknowingly you scream in the physical sleep state also, right? You scream, and sometimes you feel like peeing, and you pee on the bed, and sometimes it is like that. So all those emotions that you feel in the dream, that is affected in the physical body also.
Mm. I was wondering this for quite some time because I had this kind of dream, and when I woke up, like it just happened. The terrifying, state.
Your heart pumps faster, and
Oh.
he says all those. So since this is the biggest illusion that we are in, so there is that grudge or anger, that emotion that we are holding on to, that is of no reason, right? It because this is the biggest illusion that you are into.
Mm.
So
I was wondering.
in dream there is no one to strike you. It is just a
Correct.
dream. But still
Mm.
you had your heart feeling beating heavier, and you will be running for your breath, and but still that incident didn't happen at all. It is just a dream. But you had that in your physical body, right? He says this physical body itself is a dream. So whatever is happening in the physical real world is just a bigger dream. So you have to wake up to that dream also. But
Mm.
when we will wake up, when we die, we wake up.
Yeah, I was wondering, when we trigger the emotion, does that mean that we have that emotion inside, like, fear, fear of death, or, something like the terrifying feeling? I know I was wondering when I woke up, did I have this inside? That's why it's showing me.
But we have to always have this in mind. We don't have to analyze our dreams, right?
Yeah, yeah.
This
Mm.
is this is just how the author wants to describe the dream, and the dream that we do in while we are sleeping, and he wants to compare that dream to this bigger dream of life.
You're
So
comparing. Mm.
he just wants to write this because he was comparing that dream, small dream, with the bigger dream. That's it.
Correct, correct. Nice, nice. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, Madhavi.
Thank
It was
you. Happy
it was a
ma'am.
wonderful presentation. One point I missed, that is first principle, that is actions come from images.
Images,
Could you
correct.
please just explain on that because I missed it.
Yeah.
Mm,
So whatever we want in physical life, they are
mm.
just images. They are just images in our in the thought form. They are images in the thought form. So how long you can hold on to that image in your thought form, that determines the materiality of that thought in the form.
See, I have some thought, and
Oh.
that has come from some images, right? Which I am holding.
Hmm.
And till this point, I was not aware ki because it is coming from images and that is transforming into thought. Am I right
Okay.
to say that?
No. See what the author says as these four principles is how your thoughts become form in the physical reality.
Hmm.
How your thoughts become form. It's kind of manifestation. It's the
Okay.
visualization technique that he is talking about.
Okay.
But this entire book, though it is like you will see it when you believe it, it is kind of a manifestation technique, but he's given all the spiritual concepts very beautifully. So he says, like, you are 99% thought, awareness, consciousness, correct? Only
Hmm.
1% of that is your physical body. So for
Yes.
that, so whatever that you have in that 99%, for that to come into 1% physical reality, so what are the four principles that you have to do is you have to, whatever you're thinking, you have that as an image, right? In thoughts, we always have it as an image. So how long that image that you can hold on in a thought form itself,
Okay. Okay.
that brings the physical part of it.
Right. Yeah. Got it.
Thank you.